Imagine a top-secret prison so buried on maps that it did not even exist, and that its very name was outlawed. We are referring to Israel's Facility 1391, which has been murmured in the shadows for decades. What were the sinister events that went on behind these walls? Who are the souls trapped inside those walls? And why did they remain hidden for so long? Today, we are removing the layers of secrecy in today's video to expose the sinister and enigmatic past of Facility 1391, where questions and unspoken stories developed far from the public view. Brace yourself, because what you're about to hear might alter your view of power and secrecy forever. The story of Facility 1391 began in the early 1930s under the British Mandate, when it was meant to be a safe military outpost. But the facility was not just a building, it was a fortress of secrets, where the British held on to power, watching and reacting in silence. The Israeli government inherited these facilities once Israel acquired the Palestinian lands in 1948 and turned them into vital locations for security and intelligence activities. Facility 1391 had grown to be a pillar of Israeli military intelligence by the 1970s. But unlike other bases, which were openly recognized and accepted, this one was totally secret. It lacked an address, showed nowhere on any map, and was not distinguished by any obvious marking for everyone else outside the top levels of Israeli intelligence. To the world, it simply did not exist. The purpose of this facility was interrogation, hence it justified in part its secrecy. It was a dark spot, a place where the usual didn't apply. This was not the usual jail where offenders served terms. It was a place meant for information extraction, usually from those thought to be having vital intelligence. Some sources claim that such confidentiality was justified by the protection of national security. Keeping the facility off the books was crucial in helping the government investigate people without the scrutiny of the general public. But the secrecy leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Why was it so important that Facility 1391 was completely hidden? What was hidden inside? As we dive deeper into uncovering the truth about Facility 1391, you'll see that the truth about the facility is far darker than anyone can imagine. Picture yourself stepping into Facility 1391, the cold and unyielding walls of the facility closing in on you, a cell with no windows or any link to the outside world, and no knowledge of where you are with no means of ever knowing. Here, prisoners found themselves thrust into a void, a place where time dissolved and hope became a memory. Former prisoners talk of their experience as entering a region where time and space blend, where the mind is isolated, and where hope gradually starts to fade. The cells were so tight, and it confined bodies so that it gave the feeling of their souls being squeezed out. The walls passed out a cold that went into the bones, while there was a dim light, almost ghostly buzzing overhead, and never going off, which blurred day into night. Some cells had the confined sensation that felt worse by the air feeling thick as if it weighed on the prisoner's mind. Detention at the facility was aimed at destroying the prisoner's sense of identity and reality, not just physical captivity. Surviving in this facility wasn't just enduring physical captivity, but also having to fight to keep your sanity. One story told by a former inmate related to the moment he arrived at Facility 1391. Blindfolded and shackled, he was guided down a winding corridor, hearing only the footfall of guards and the sporadic distant murmur of other captives. The guards said not a word. When his blindfold was removed, he found himself in a cramped cell with a single mattress, not knowing where he was or if he'd ever leave. Days turned into weeks, punctuated only by sudden, chaotic questioning sessions that left him mentally shattered. Here, silence was a weapon. Captives constantly heard other prisoners' screams and cries, or fell into bouts of hallucinations, having lost their sense of time and their minds breaking down under isolation. Some detainees felt as if they had ceased to exist outside the facility walls, trapped in a reality slipping out of their grasp. It felt like they were cut out from the planet. But the seclusion was not the only reason Facility 1391 worried most people. The technique used to crack the prisoners' brains wasn't meant to just wipe out any form of resistance, but to also erase their identity. Let's explore the psychological techniques used in Facility 1391, which made it infamous. Facility 1391 was more than just a site of incarceration. It was a site of psychological warfare, a laboratory of the mind. The tactics used here were aimed not at the body, but at the very essence of self, the mind. The conventional interrogation techniques gave way to psychological warfare, where sensory deprivation, disorientation, and relentless manipulation created a landscape of fear. The torture methods used in Facility 1391 are whispered, but never fully confirmed, and even as rumors send chills down the spine. One method used was confusing captives by asserting they had been sent to other countries. Far from any chance of rescue, several inmates were told they were in Syria, Egypt, or Jordan. Stripping away their sense of place struck a mortal blow to hope, heightening the sense of dread. Former inmates have also mentioned an approach of sensual manipulation. Some cells would suddenly swing from scorching hot to cold. This was a deliberate act of cruelty that left the minds and bodies of prisoners reeling. Detainees were housed in chambers, plunged into pitch darkness, or blinded by flooding light. In some cells, silence would reign, letting the prisoners be at peace for days, while in others, white noise would be blasting at deafening sound, breaking all sense of peace. These methods were meant to shatter focus, eat away at their will to resist. Guards were known to play games with the mind of the inmates. Sometimes they would just go into a cell and remain quiet, watching, then leave without having said anything. This was just a strategy to grow anxiety in the detainees and make them confused and unsure of what was coming next. These tactics weren't meant to just extract information, but to erode the sense of identity of the captive and leave them fractured and hollow. Many were left wondering about their own sense of self, as it was a kind of psychological torture. But why would the facility go to such lengths? And who among the detainees deserved these harsh policies? The response shows exactly how hazy the borders between the enemy and the innocent became inside Facility 1391. The detainees of Facility 1391 were from all walks of life. Some were just citizens, others were suspects who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and some were suspected of belonging to a hostile group. Many people were detained based on rumors or faint suspicions amidst the fog of war and regional strife. Among the detained, there were Palestinians, Lebanese citizens, and even foreigners, each who were plucked from the outside world and erased within the walls of Facility 1391. Often, vague standards for incarceration resulted in innocent individuals caught in the web of state security. One former prisoner from Lebanon shared how he was arrested just for visiting relatives in a border area. He simply disappeared without a trace, leaving his loved ones looking for a never-coming explanation. This indiscriminate approach begs problems regarding responsibility and due process. Many inmates lingered for months or even years, frequently without knowing why, without official charges, without a trial and monitoring. Facility 1391 made people afraid not only for individuals who entered, but also for families left behind, constantly yearning for news of their loved ones due to lack of openness. The uncertainty about the detainees presents a negative picture of how Facility 1391 ran. But how was such a place left to exist unseen for so long? As we will see, campaigners and whistleblowers must have the guts to at last expose this secret fortitude. Facility 1391 operated in shadows and evaded public knowledge for years. Survivors and missing person cases provided hints at an unknown holding site. Eventually, the cries of former captives found their way to human rights advocates and groups set on truth-seeking. Survivor stories and missing person cases revealed patterns suggesting an unidentified holding facility. Driven by these trends, activists and reporters seeking the truth started a campaign. An Israeli human rights group asked the Israeli Supreme Court in 2003 to seek details concerning Facility 1391. The legal battle forced the government to acknowledge the existence of the facility. Though little, It was a big turning point. The revelation was a flashpoint, which sparked public outrage and calls for transparency in government. Details were few even with this acknowledgement. Denying any maltreatment of detainees, the authorities stated the facility was utilized purely for security reasons. Human rights groups stayed dubious, nevertheless, since reports from former inmates contradicted one another. Facility 1391 forced the government to consider the ethical consequences of its presence since it became a focal point for arguments on national security and human rights. But was the actual change brought about by this exposure? Alternatively, did Facility 1391 carry on under an even more opaque cover of secrecy? We will ask the disturbing question of whether the sinister secrets of Facility 1391 have really been buried as we near the end of our path. There was first indignation when Facility 1391 was ultimately unveiled to the world. The government looked into things internally, but the results never were shared completely. The scant material that was provided looked well chosen, leaving numerous unresolved issues. Officials' comments minimized the importance of the facility, characterizing it as an essential but unpleasant national security precaution. They asserted that the facility handled high-risk interrogations, but they remained silent on details on the inmates, methods of questioning, or the circumstances within. Survivors, however, didn't remain silent. They kept speaking out. They shared haunting tales of the psychological torment, of the lost days and minds chipped off at the edges. Yet, without any records of physical evidence, the struggle to gather traction in court. Many of the detainees lacked any medical records, any physical evidence, and no pictures to support their allegations. The exposure of Facility 1391 sparked a critical conversation but failed to bring true accountability. The disclosure of Facility 1391 spurred a discussion both inside Israel and outside of it. People started challenging the harmony between security and human rights. Even with regard to national security, could a facility like this really be justified? And what else might be lurking in the shadows if such a location might exist unseen? One last issue remains, nevertheless, given public interest declining and government silence predominantly. Is Facility 1391 still in use today? Alternatively, did the activities migrate to a new, even more covert site? The response could be closer than we first assumed. From a more general standpoint, Facility 1391 symbolizes the two-edged blade of national security. In many cases, secrecy is required to safeguard intelligence operations, save lives, and preserve stability. But where is the line between protection and oppression? Facility 1391's legacy forces us to consider the cost of unbridled power as well as the consequences when accountability is neglected. The secret of Facility 1391 still affects public confidence today. Some say the facility was vital, while others say it became a haven for power abuse. And as the years go by, the facility's mystery deepens. Was it really unique, or does it signify a hidden network of such places across the world? One more question awaits us as we get closer. Has Facility 1391 established a precedent, leaving behind a fresh blueprint for covert operations? Or was it only one chapter in a story still being written on invisible sites all around the globe? Although Facility 1391 may have been revealed, many more questions remain. No clear list of detainees has been published even after years of investigation, and the precise nature of its interrogation techniques is still unknown. Some believe records were deleted, while others believe the whole truth may never be known. The dark side of intelligence operations means that Facility 1391 may not be an isolated case. If it could operate for many years without detection, could there be other comparable facilities around the world that we still know absolutely nothing about? Whistleblowers and former intelligence officials periodically allude to undisclosed detention centers, hinting at operations buried even deeper than this. Though these ideas have never been confirmed, the fact that Facility 1391 was kept under secret has led to a range of theories. Some believe it was not only an interrogation site, but also a hub for testing psychological techniques. Others believe the facility's goal was not limited to intelligence gathering. If so, what kind of truths might still lurk beneath layers of classified files and sealed doors? Could these hypotheses have a grain of reality, though? And are there traces of Facility 1391's activities buried in other corners of the globe? The narrative of Facility 1391 is one of responsibility and the search of truth as much as of mystery and concealment. Human rights organizations, former detainees, and campaigners battled years to highlight its sinister background. Their actions exposed the terrible possibilities of unbridled authority and compelled governments to face hard reality. Facility 1391 teaches one very important lesson about the need for control in military operations and intelligence. Lack of openness means that even well-meaning laws may turn into abuses of power. The narrative of Facility 1391 serves as a sobering lesson that responsibility always must coexist with concealment. Operating in the shadows, institutions run more risk of violating human rights and alienating the very people they are supposed to defend. The ethical discussions over sites like Facility 1391 remain pertinent as society changes. Governments have to strike a balance between respect of human rights and security demands, and people have to be alert in all spheres supporting openness. One thing is abundantly evident from the disclosure of Facility 1391. The world has to be ready to challenge authority when needed and cognizant of the extent to which power might reach. Still, these insights leave one wondering what else is concealed and just waiting to be discovered. The narrative of Facility 1391 serves as a sobering reminder of the secrets perhaps hiding in the dark passageways of our own countries. Is there more we yet have to learn? Although the narrative of Facility 1391 seems out of a dystopian book, it is a sober fact. The existence of this place begs an alarming question. Could something like Facility 1391 recur? The possibility for covert operations has only grown in the modern world when monitoring and technology have evolved to become more complex. Global monitoring systems, biometric data, and AI-driven surveillance help to enable unheard-of control and tracking of people. And with these developments, there is also the likelihood of even more covert incarceration facilities. Imagine buildings hidden by digital obfuscation and invisible to the public, yet guarded by sophisticated cybersecurity. The idea of hidden sites like Facility 1391 may be more plausible than we would want to admit in a society where even our tools are under surveillance. As citizens, our only defense is awareness, the demand for openness, and never letting history bury events like that of Facility 1391. Is it over as we come to the end of our path, across the shadows of Facility 1391? Has this sinister chapter concluded, or is it only a preview of a time when secrets are more difficult to unearth but even more terrifying once discovered? We appreciate everyone watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos coming your way. Do you believe institutions like Facility 1391 cross the line, or are they absolutely required for security? Drop your comments below. We would be very happy to hear from you. Stay tuned for further fascinating tales just like this, and we'll see you in the next video.